So my story of addiction begins as a young teenager growing up in the San Fernando Valley, California, the pornography production capital of the world. And I had a pretty tough home life. I was a tall, skinny kid, very awkward, very shy. A lot of mental illness runs in my family, so I had depression, anxiety, even had some Tourette syndrome, ADD. Really, I kind of like to say I had the grab bag of my family all in me. But I had a lot of stress, very insecure, and then I was introduced to pornography by an uncle. And I like to say from the very first time I saw it, I was hooked just like that. And couple that with masturbation, and I discovered my drug of choice, my way to soothe and self-medicate, to deal with the hard stuff happening at home, to deal with all the stuff happening at school. And it just became the way for me to escape into this other world where I would feel good for a short time. The problem was, afterwards, I would feel incredible guilt and shame. I grew up in a very religious Christian family, and I was on this roller coaster ride, right? Falling into it, overcoming, falling into it, until finally I just gave up. And I really didn't do a whole lot to stop it. I tried everything I could. I would grip my teeth and clench my fists and say, I'm never going to do that again. And then fighting that fight, I would finally be exhausted and would fall back into it. And that went on all through my teenage years, and I went off to college, and eventually I got married. And I figured, now that I'm married, I won't have a need for any of that anymore. That's no longer a part of my life. And it worked that way for a while, but about 6 months into my marriage, I was going to school full-time. I had a full-time job. I had a volunteer position in my church. We had a child on the way, and all of this pressure hit me. And when it hit, then my brain said, oh, I know the solution to all of this stress. There's this wonderful place that you can escape to. And what I found was that all of that sexual addiction, that pornography addiction, came back into my life like a tidal wave. And I was back immersed in it. And I started in the roller coaster ride again, fighting it, trying to resist it, keeping it a secret at all costs, even from my wife, because I was frightened that if everyone found out what I was doing, that my life would be over. My reputation would be shot. No one would accept me or love me for who I was. And so I went to great lengths to keep it hidden and to keep it a secret. So I remember my ground zero in addiction. It was after decades of struggling and trying everything, resisting and clenching my fists and gritting my teeth and trying to stay sober, trying to stay away from the sexual addiction and outlets. But that process would exhaust me until finally I would give in because I had no strength left. And I would immerse myself back into deep addiction, and then I would come out of that and pound my fists on the desk and say, that's the last time I'm ever going to do that. And then I would go into a time of some sobriety but fall right back in. And I did that over and over again, this roller coaster ride, right? I call it the roller coaster ride from hell. But I remember it became so desperate. I became so disgusted with myself. I felt like God was so disappointed that he was done with me. And one dark night, I actually went out into the garage to my gun safe, and I spun the dial and I opened it and I looked at that Glock pistol, and I became very close to just putting the gun to my head and ending the struggle. But through God's grace, through a miracle really, he pulled me out of that place, and I didn't go through with it. And I started to realize that there was hope. There was a chance for me. And about that time, this wonderful, beautiful man, Dr. Paige Bailey, one of the world's renowned neuropsychologists, he came into my life, became like a second father to me, and took me under his wing and started to teach me how addiction works. He said, Mark, let me help you understand how you get pulled into this over and over again. It's not because you're a loser or a lost cause or even because you lack willpower. It's this that you don't understand the process. So he taught me. And I literally left my very successful career in the financial field and entered the mental health field. and went through training and the process of learning and became a counselor and started to make my way in recovery. And I experimented with a lot of things and tried this and tried that. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. And over time, I learned all the ways really not to be successful in recovery. And over a period of well over a decade, 10 years as a counselor and in recovery, I began to learn what actually works in the trenches of daily life. And I learned what worked for me. I consider myself to have one of the most severe addictions, even among all the men that I've worked with over these last 20 years now. And so figuring out what worked for me, and then with others that I was helping, we discovered what really is the solution. And so today, I live in complete sobriety and recovery. Many years ago, I had my last relapse. There is such a thing. And today I live like a normal guy. Yeah, I still have temptations, but I know exactly what to do with them. I know how to direct my own thinking. I know how to live and stay in God's grace. I know how to call upon my higher power to help me in each moment. My wife and I are more welded and bonded together than ever. We have been through so much together that you can't break us apart. And so I have really this fabulous life. Yeah, there are still some dark days. I still struggle with some mental health issues, but there are so many good days. And I know how to stay on the path. And because I know how to do that, and because I've had the privilege of helping so many to do the same, I know how to help you. If I can do it, you can do it. If Steve and I can live in this great place, then we're confident that we can help you to do the same thing. So again, come along with us and be perfectly broken together with us.